Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Career Insights 501. I'm your host, Dr. Loso, and today we're going to be talking about a career as a voice actor. So today I have my friend Jake Phillips on the call with me, and he is going to be talking about his career as a voice actor and how he got into that, and give you all some tips on how to pursue that career or start out in that career, and even if you're already in it, how to elevate yourselves in that career. So, Jake, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this for me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me, Dr. Loso. Good to talk to you.
So, Jake, if you could tell the people a little bit about yourself and give them a little background history about you.
You bet. Born and raised in Mississippi. I attended Mississippi State University. Met you my sophomore year in speech class, 2005. So we've known each other quite a while.
Yeah, quite a while.
And then graduated in 2007, commissioned in the U.S. Army, was stationed in Kansas, South Carolina, a few other places, deployed to Iraq, got out, had several jobs in industry, including as a contractor at Mercedes-Benz over between Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. And then my last kind of conventional job was at Yokohama Tire Manufacturing in West Point, Mississippi, kind of right between where you grew up and where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So now I work from home, have my own place out in the country, married, 4 kids, and we got chickens. You know, it's just a very, very laid back life I've got, and I really like it.
Hey, with the prices of eggs right now, I bet those chickens are coming in handy.
I know we don't buy eggs, and yes, that's been very nice.
Yeah, growing up, we had eggs too. So yeah, I'm from the area, and just so you all listeners don't get it misconstrued, Mississippi isn't as country as it may sound, but it has country parts. It's still the South. So, but growing up, we had chickens as well. They were kind of like pets, but we had the benefit of getting eggs from them. But we had about 2 dozen. I don't know how many you have.
I think we have 14, including the rooster.
Okay. Yeah, we had like 2 roosters and like a lot of hens. So it started off with us getting the little chicks for Easter from the co-op. But yeah, so getting back to doing voiceover, how did you get into that? Like, where you were a kid, was it something that you used to do, watching TV shows, mocking cartoon characters or characters from your favorite TV show? Or, as you got older, was it something where people say, hey, man, you got a really great voice, you should think about voice acting? So how did you get into that?
Right. Well, I think my dad had a really deep voice. People always said I sounded like him. So I had that sort of unconscious, like, hey, you have a deep voice or something. And then also, yes, every cartoon, I've always loved animated stuff. Woody Woodpecker, I've always been big into Pixar, Toy Story. I remember we had friends in Prairie, Mississippi. I watched Toy Story on VHS in Prairie, Mississippi.
Yeah, that's where I'm from.
Exactly. Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear and all. Anyway, yes, I did all that. Never seriously thought about, I could maybe make money at that, or that anybody makes money at that. I just saw, Tom Hanks, he's an actor, so that's what they do. But I didn't think about, if you look at that cast, there's a bunch of people on that cast you've never heard of. Those are the voice actors, and that's all they do is do the little bit parts where it's like, hey, look at that guy. They do all that and get paid tons of money. But in the, I didn't ever seriously consider it until when I was in the Army. I went to a stage production of Romeo and Juliet at Kansas State University, who has a really good theater program. And I kind of, and I went to another play, and I don't remember what the play was called, but the thought of performing was the first time I remember that sort of taking seed in. And then later on, I heard an audiobook, and I thought, you know what, that sounds really, I wonder if I could do that. And so this was probably '08 or '09, but I never did anything about it till my dad passed away 2013, and I had a newborn daughter, and I thought, well, I think I have one recording of my dad, like on MP3.
Mm,
I treasure it. Well, I thought, well, what if I have recordings of me reading stories and classic books and the Bible, just whatever, uh,
mm-hmm.
for her. And that way, if I get hit by a bus, why, she's got the whole, you know, iPod full of stuff.
Yeah.
Folks were still using back then was iPods, of, of recordings of dad reading. So that was
Yeah.
motivation to get started. It had nothing to do with my,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to sort of make memories for my, uh, for my, for my little girl.
Mm,
Um,
nice.
and I guess one day I just decided maybe I could make money at this. And I started listening
Mm-hmm.
to good narrators. And so this is probably 2015, something like that.
Okay.
I started working at it. Maybe 14. I started working at it. And then, one thing led to another until I started actually making money.
Nice. So what was your first gig, and how was that like? What was that experience like for you as a voice actor for the first time? Because we did some work, a couple of years ago
Yeah.
in the past, and that was for some instructional design e-learning courses. But I know you've done stuff for commercials, and I think I saw your TikTok the other day. You were doing some stuff on there about Emily or Emma.
Probably Emily Bronte or maybe Emma from Jane Austen or something like that.
I think that's what it was. Somebody said you were spelling the name wrong, but
Oh,
we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
sure.
But yeah, so what was that first job like for you as a voice actor?
Well, I think my first job was fake. It was a fake commercial for a fake product, basically, for the marketing of a indie film.
Mm,
We'll give you $100 if you read this. And so I was like, sure. And so I did it, and they, put it on YouTube and used it in their marketing. And I thought, well, that was really cool. I had,
mm-hmm.
and I think that built my confidence. And I encourage everybody, whatever you're doing, get some small victories. You know,
Mm,
I say, in let's say baseball, don't try and hit a home run. Just make contact with the ball. Just get
mm-hmm.
there, put the bat on the ball, try to get on base.
Yeah,
Don't worry about
yeah.
slam yet. That'll come probably when you least expect it. And so that was probably my first time that I remember, getting payment for something that I did with my voice. And I remember that being really exciting.
Mm-hmm. That's what's up. So how did you go from working at Yokohama was your last, like, I guess, corporate or
Yeah.
industry job, so to speak. How did you go from working there full time to transitioning to having your voice acting talents be your full time moneymaker? Because for me, like just kind of like starting my whole thing up with Insight and building that brand out is it. I feel like I have to have that safety net of a full time job until that can like pay my bills, so to speak. So how did you make that transition?
Exactly what you just said, as far as
Mm,
I went from, because when I got the job at Yokohama, I thought, well, if I do a good job and everything, will hopefully I can retire here. I can spend 20 or 30 years and have a comfortable, good life and retire and, kind of the American dream sort of a deal, you know.
yeah.
Um, and uh, obviously there's nothing wrong with that. I have all the respect in the world for people that will show up, clock in every day for years and years and, you know, do great work. I mean, America needs lots of people like me.
Hmm.
Thankful for those people. But me, that's not me. I kind of need to, you know, um, I don't like being boxed in, I guess. I like to make my own
Yeah.
schedule. There's a lot of stuff that came along with about a couple years in. I'm kind of like, man, I got to work for myself somehow. And so I started saying, okay, what can I do So instead, it went from being, okay, this is my career, to, oh, this is my vehicle to get me to where I really want to go, which is work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep doing great work. I'm going to be conscientious, all that stuff. But this is not going to be my career. My career,
Yeah.
I'm going to build on my lunch break and on the drive over and on the drive back by learning, listening to podcasts, listening to YouTube videos, practicing accents or voices or whatever I need to do. I'm going to do that in my free time and late at night after I get home from work. So that's what I
Mm-hmm.
did for, the last year and a half, I guess, that I was there. Was every day when going to work, I was not, I was thinking about, okay, let's get through work, do a good job, obviously, but also, okay, how do I get out of this place?
Yeah.
I almost thought of it like a prison, like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go where you tell me.
Prison break.
I'm digging a tunnel out back, by the way. I don't know about. I'm shaking that the old movie with Steve McQueen, The Great Escape, where it's their
Oh yeah.
prison camp, and they're like digging a tunnel out, and those shake the dirt out of their pants every day when they.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was doing. And then when it got to the point that I was making enough money that I kind of felt comfortable saying, you know what, at some point I gotta say I'm out of here. I got to
Mm-hmm.
the point where it's like I can't make any more money than this unless I quit. So for a
Mm-hmm.
while, I'm probably going to sacrifice, but ultimately, I got to quit this job in order to, when a client says, "Hey, we'd like to record at, I don't know, 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. Can you do that?" Well, in the current job, no, I can't. I can only record after, after hours, outside of
Yeah.
live, basically. And if you're in a pro recording session, they don't want to hear that. And so, I had to say, okay, let's get out of here and act like a pro. So that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. Who were some of your biggest inspirations as a voice actor? Like who were people that you looked up to? I know you mentioned your dad earlier in his voice, so I would take it that he was a big inspiration and influence on you pursuing that career or wanting to hone that craft. But who are some, I guess, more industry, I guess, like you said, voice actors aren't really known unless they're kind of like really big. For me, the first person that I think of is James Earl Jones, because he's so famous for like our generation, for like Mufasa and
Yeah,
Darth Vader
better.
and that sort of thing.
Definitely James Earl Jones, because he has
Mm-hmm.
that nobody even sounds remotely like. Oh, I thought that was, no, you didn't. That's James Earl. There's only one. Him, uh, Morgan Freeman,
Oh yeah.
who is a whole nother style, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not the kind of booming, like, God, is that, it's like grandpa. And he could be giving you the worst news in the
Right.
world, but it just sounds like it's going to be okay. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And his diction, his cadence, it just sounds like everything's going to be okay. And I love
Mm-hmm.
warmth there. So both of those, James Earl Jones, Morgan Freeman, Tom Selleck is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he narrated a series called North America, and it's a nature series that was on
Mm-hmm.
Discovery Channel about 2013, and it's fantastic.
Mm.
As
I probably seen that because I watch all of those,
okay,
like Nature
yeah,
Discovery. Yeah.
and there are clips on YouTube and stuff. But Tom Selleck, that was one of the first ones that I actually listened to on YouTube, like typed out the script and then recorded myself reading it and tried to sound like him. That was one of the first guys that I did that to. And those are American actors. British actors. Benedict Cumberbatch is a favorite,
Mm.
and he's most people know him as Doctor Strange in the
Mm-hmm.
series, and then Tom Hiddleston, who is Loki in the Marvel universe.
Okay.
Both of them are unbelievable narrators. Unbelievable. They're so, and, in the movie, a lot of times there's so much visual stuff, you don't really focus on the voice. If you go onto YouTube and type in Tom Hiddleston reading poetry, oh my gosh, that is some good stuff. And
I can see it now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Tom, yeah, for sure. I can definitely see that.
This is Jake Phillips, and you're listening to Career Insights 501 with Dr. Loso.
Okay, so could you tell us a little bit more about, I guess, the different types of voice actors? So I know you had mentioned like narration just a few seconds ago. What are the other different types of voice actors out there?
Well, usually you have long form and short form. It's kind of, most will go into one of those two categories. Long form is audiobooks, documentaries, e-learning modules, podcasts. Where there's a podcast called Old Gods of Appalachia. A lot of people listen to that. Is it's all narrated basically. That's long form. And then you have your short form, which is 30-second Pepsi commercial, that kind of thing, 60-second Pepsi commercial. And then you have your character type stuff. So it could be a character in a cartoon, on a video game, maybe a museum piece where you walk up and punch the button and you hear somebody talking to you as a character, like, hey, I'm, whoever person. There's all kind of things. Six Flags rides at Six Flags, the characters and those things, somebody was paid to voice those. And it really is all around you. You hear voiceover everywhere.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that now, because I'm thinking about like those little Valentine cards or like the little bears that dance and sing something or sing a song. So it really is all around you. And I really didn't start thinking about it myself until you started naming all those things, like, the Six Flags stuff, because I worked at, theme parks myself. So I just never thought about those being voice actors. I think in my mindset, it kind of goes back to the conversation earlier about, as a child watching cartoons, you don't really think about that being a career or a job that someone's doing. To me, that was Woody Woodpecker. Like it's nobody else. It's just Woody Woodpecker talking. So I didn't really think about the people behind the voice of those characters. So that's interesting, even for me now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, video games is such a big thing too now, and I don't think people really think about the voice actors on that. I know Microsoft, just like what made me think about it briefly over the past years, is when Microsoft had their mobile OS, Windows OS, and they had their Cortana, the lady who spoke for Cortana in Halo. She did the actual voice for that and the OS, and I think they incorporated it into their like main OS Windows.
Okay.
But I found what I found interesting about that is that she was going through and saying like certain, like, I guess, phrases or parts of words, and they would piece it together, I guess, with some type of AI, so that she could just go through and say any words, or some type of, I guess, smart learning. I don't know really exactly what they were doing there with that. Do you know anything about that?
Not really. I know that there's definitely a lot of development in AI on that kind of thing, where you can, it used to be just a computer generated voice that they're trying to make sound like sort of a natural person conversating. And I think they got a ways to go, but it's also come a long ways. Well, now they're to the point that they're trying to make it sound like, they could, like if you have, if we have his DNA, we could find him. Oh, here's his ball cap. Okay, well, we can do tests. Now we have his DNA. Now we can test all this stuff. It's like if you have a voice message, you can put it in this program and then make them say anything as you. Like that's what they're working with now. And again, I don't think it's not foolproof yet, but give it a few years, probably will be.
Yeah. That's crazy because I remember the text to speech. The first thing that I remember back with that was Bunzy Buddy. I think it's Bunzy, but it was the purple gorilla, and you could type in like words, and it would speak like your name or sentences or
Okay.
whatever you would say. That was like late '90s, I think,
Right.
because I still remember the dial up, but it would be like so slow to download the actual application, but it was pretty cool at the time. But like I said, they've definitely come a long way from that. Um, so that's interesting. Where do you see the industry going as far as voice acting? Because we see all this stuff out here now with deepfake and AI and machine learning and all that. So where do you see the industry going, and how do you think it's going to affect, I guess, human voice actors?
Well, obviously I don't know, but I suspect that it will continue. AI and everything will continue going that way. You know,
Hmm.
and I think that will definitely have an impact in some way on voice actors. But I also think that voice actors like myself won't ever go away completely. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Just like people in the US used to light their homes with whale oil. That men would go
Right.
out in a ship
Hmm.
and you know kill whales and take the blubber and make oil, and people would light their homes and do other stuff. Well, we don't do that anymore. Later it became coal.
Hmm.
People would light their homes with coal and stuff, but they were still hunting whales on a smaller scale, but they were still hunting whales.
Right.
And then later on, after coal, it was electricity,
Hmm.
or other things, but eventually electricity. And yet there's still coal mining that goes on. There's still
Hmm.
people harvesting whales, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
those things are still around. I suspect that it will affect the industry. It'll take a lot of the business, for the person that
Hmm.
says, well, instead of paying this guy, $3,000 every 6 months to do whatever, how about we spend $1,000 on some software that we could use for the next 5 years and just
Hmm.
run all our stuff through it. You know what I mean? So I think that will
Right. Yeah.
happen. I suspect. But I also think for people that say, you know what, we want to stand out, and a human is just always going to, I mean, a trained human, let's say, maybe not any human, but if you sort of know what you're doing, I
Right.
think that Morgan Freeman will always have a job. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because no AI is going to get him exactly right. He might come close.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
got a million impersonators. Some are really good, but nobody's Morgan.
Hmm.
I think it's kind
Yeah.
of like that. And I think when somebody says, you know what, we're gonna pay a little bit extra in the budget to really make our ad pop because we're gonna have a real person. I think there will always be that. I suspect.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, especially when it comes to like the arts. So like I don't know if you've been seeing a lot of posts on LinkedIn about the AI art.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people are against that. Some people are for it, but I think people who are like um real artists are more so against it because they can see where it's a threat to their industry. And a lot of times, from what I understand, the AI is getting like pieces from other people's art and kind of like putting it together. I don't really know the whole like story behind it, but it seems like people were upset that they weren't getting credit for the work that they put weeks and months and years into when a software can go out there and create something in a couple of seconds and produce some work. So I definitely think it's something to think about.
Yeah, I think my way of looking at it is there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
So I'm not going to, uh, since getting mad about it won't help
Hmm.
anything. How about I just, use that as motivation to get so good that AI will never, I'll always be better than AI, or at
Right.
least
Right. Yeah.
competing with it, where someone would have to think
Hmm.
long and hard, like, I'd rather just have the real guy. Uh,
Yeah.
and then, and also like with art, no, there's nothing anyone's ever made that they didn't in some way pull from someone else, some other great artist. Like
Right.
I just named three people that I try to be like in my narration.
Mm-hmm.
Or five people, I guess, if you count the Brits. But like, you know, if someone said, "Oh, that sounded like how Benedict Cumberbatch inflects," yeah, probably so. Sorry, you know what I mean? Like, what can I say? I
Yeah.
think every artist is like that. There's no artist that just like
Mm-hmm.
lived in a cave and never saw anybody or anything and created all this beautiful art. They got it from somewhere, or probably a lot of other people. You know, I think the best thing is
Mm-hmm.
just say, "Hey, I think that's the future. Let's roll with it."
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you say that about, them pulling inspiration from other artists, because like I sit around and think a lot, and I've been thinking about art over the past couple of years a lot. And to me, what I've come to, I guess, believe is that art is kind of like education. It's a scaffolding type of thing. So what I mean by that, like if you take superheroes, like everybody sees all my X-Men and Marvel stuff back here when they look at my videos and pictures, but Superman, you read stories like how he was taken he was inspired by Jesus and then Greek gods. And then you look at Superman, he's very, I guess, basic as a superhero and what he can do. So like things that people typically wish they could be is like stronger or smarter or faster and all these things. And then you get into these more complex characters that can like control the weather or shoot beams from their eyes or turn invisible. And then we start talking about people who can warp reality, and we get out into space and there's all this cosmic stuff. And it's just kind of like these ideas build on top of each other when it comes to creativity. So I definitely agree with you on that part where, people are just taking and building upon what people before them, have done or contributed to that specific field.
Right.
So that I do want to talk about that, so when you say you wanted to be as good as AI or at least compete with it. So I was on TikTok, and I really don't know how to use it that well, like all the different like areas that you go to it, but I clicked on the little people thing and you came up and you were. So this is my question to you. I don't know if you were reading or if you were lip syncing to like one of the voice things. So I was like, man, this sounds like his voice, but I don't know if he's reading, like following, because how people
Right.
get on there and they do the voiceovers and they lip sync to it. So was that actually you?
Yeah, I haven't lip synced anything because I don't know how to do that. Probably would if I
Okay,
could
I
figure
was
it
just
out. But
like,
yeah, if it was a video of me, it was definitely my voice because I haven't like I can't figure out how to put filters on. It's so yeah, it was me.
yeah, because it sounded like, and I guess with the quality sounded really good, but you were talking in I guess like your lower octave, and so I was like, I kept looking and I was just like, it was like really messing up my head. So I didn't know if I was like, well, I'll ask him when I get him on the show if that was him or if he was doing one of those voiceover
Okay.
things. So, and like I say, you were reading something. So I don't know if it's someone had made a comment about you not saying something right, or you added an extra E onto something, but that's the nature of what I really can't remember what it was talking about, but I was impressed with either. If you were voiceovering, I was impressed, and I was going to say, hey, you need to teach some singers how to voice over. But yeah,
I
you
know what you're talking
definitely.
about. It was one of the things that I like to do on TikTok is to take like British classics and read them with an intentionally Southern accent. It's funny. But like I read Lord of the Rings, this part from Lord of the Rings in a Southern accent, and then put the soundtrack from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly to it. Like the Riders of Rohan or whatever. And it sounded like a Western. It was cool. Okay, so this British lady got on there and was just bent out of shape that I would dare to defile their beautiful language or something. And I was just like, lady, sorry, this is TikTok. Is this your first day? We're doing a lot of stuff on here you might not like. And anyway,
Right.
So in my answer to her, I read her question back in a British accent, like, I cared what she thought. And then I just changed back to a redneck accent, like, yeah, well, I ain't going to do it. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about. That was my voice.
It was classic. When I post this online, I'm definitely going to have to link that video to this so everybody can see what we're talking about. That was pretty good. So, what would be some of the skills that you would say that people would need as a voice actor? So, obviously, a good voice.
I would say a healthy voice, as long as you can speak
Okay.
without physical pain, or if there's people with maladies, or whether chronic or acute, maybe couldn't do it. But the vast majority of people can talk. You can talk. You can be a voice actor. I really think that. And, like, I'm not going to sound like, if they're doing a kid's sort of a kid's commercial for a kid's toy, where they're going to want either a kid or a younger sounding voice, so that the kid that on, Saturday morning watching cartoons, picking his nose, eating Fruit Loops, is going to be listening to the thing, and not like, hey kid, you need this toy, like that kind of creeps them out. Whereas if it's a little kid, like, yay, it's the dino dump or whatever. So there's a huge casting available. There's all kinds of casting. You'd be surprised. Some people are like, I want this to sound Southern. I want this to sound Texan. I want this to sound urban. I want this to sound, there's so many like castings that people ask for, preteen, or, 20 to 40, whatever. So if you have a voice and you can speak without pain or whatever, I think that you could definitely be a voice actor if you wanted to be. I do think you should work on at least the ability to not, where if someone heard you, they wouldn't know where you were from, in America anyway. A British, you'll know, okay, that's an American, but they wouldn't know, oh, you're from Minnesota or Florida or Texas. It needs to sound,
Gotcha.
Think of everybody that you see on any major news network. You can't tell where they're from. Shepard Smith is from Mississippi. He's been on Fox News. I think he's on MSNBC now. You can't tell. He's got mid-regional diction. And that's the same with a lot of people. Be able to speak in a mid-regional diction. That'll be very valuable. And even if you're not, you can still be, I'll be Southern until I can talk like that. Or, hey, I'm from the Northeast. I'll do a demo, and all I do is, Northeastern sound, and people can get me for, if they want a character as a, in some Northeastern accent, from whatever, Brooklyn or something, and you know how to do that, then, you can always do that. So, you don't need a lot of equipment. You just need a voice and a desire to work hard.
How would you suggest, or some tips that you would give somebody to get that mid-regional diction? Because me, from being from Mississippi, like it's a struggle. Like, I'm always in my head trying to pronounce and say things so I don't sound too country. And for me, I think there's a difference between being country and Southern. I think country is like an extreme version of
I totally agree. And it's interesting how many accents there are, but one would be, listen to people that have good English, basically. Newscasters, that kind of thing. Listen to them and hear how they speak, how they say words, how they say their R's, how they say their INGs, that kind of thing. A lot of times in the South, we tend to just whittle those right off. We mash things together, shouldn't be mashed together. We cut things apart, shouldn't be cut apart. Listen to good English, good American English. And usually you'll hear that on most major networks, the anchors on most major networks, national networks, are going to be like that. Or, I'm sure there's podcasts. You can go on YouTube, but just listen to them and even try and imitate them. You might take a line that they said and, try and imitate that. The way that I learned was before I started voice acting. My platoon sergeant in the Army said, "Hey, none of us can understand you, man." And so I was like, what do you mean? He's like, "You're Southern as a turnip green. None of us can understand you." He was from Montana. And so I was like, really? And so I started trying to enunciate, and say my R's and my S's and my INGs. And so I was training for voice acting for some time before I ever realized it. That remains the best advice,
Gotcha.
voice acting advice I've ever gotten. And I was getting yelled at. But yeah, I would say definitely try to work on it. But also, regional accents will make you a lot of money too. So keep your native one, be able to draw it on command, and learn some other ones. Learn to. Texans love the way they sound. I do tons of work in Texas, and they're always like, "Could you please? We want it to sound Texan, so make sure it sounds Texan." Like in the script. Everybody else in the country, with the exception of some places in California, they don't want to know where you're from. Sometimes outdoor stuff like Cabela's type thing. Sometimes I kind of want that Southern outdoorsy sound, but 90% of people around the country, with the exception of Texas and a few places in California, they don't want to know where you're from. And so you'll get the biggest bang for your buck if you can speak in a mid-regional diction on command, at least when you need to.
Going back to your first point about just having a healthy voice because they want all different types of voices. I guess I grew up when there were these kind of standards and there wasn't as much inclusivity as there is now. So, it's really big on diversity and inclusion and that sort of thing now. So I could see why or how people with a more unique voice could have those opportunities. And I don't know if people who are aspiring to be voice actors really think about that, or if they're dissuaded because they think that they don't have the right voice, so to speak. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I think now the field is diverse as it's ever been. I know, different races of people that are making a good living at it. Whereas used to, it was all like middle-aged to older white guys was the only guys that were even on the radio, because that's all you had was radio. And then you had radio and TV, and then you had radio, TV, internet, and it's constantly now on the internet. Everybody's got a streaming channel, and they all need content. So there's not only is it more diverse, there's so much more work than there's ever been, which is great for everybody. And AI will fill some of it, but normal people are going to fill most of it for now, and will always fill a lot of it, I think. And now's a good time as any to jump in, start training for that, if nothing else.
Gotcha. So I'm going to switch over and ask, I guess, some more quirky type questions. What has been, I guess, it doesn't have to be as a voice actor, but just as a job, what has been one of the craziest interview questions or requests that you've received from an employer or somebody that you work with?
Well, as a voice actor, probably there's a British company, a toy company, and I've done 3 or 4 commercials for them now, and it's for a burping, farting dinosaur. And so in the ad, it's the writer. So it's a whole ad, and I'm voicing 3 characters. So I'm the narrator, I'm the dinosaur, and I'm the writer like the dinosaur rider, the guy's riding the dinosaur. I'm
Mm.
also doing the sound effects of the burping and the farting for different ones. So, yeah, you know,
That's
I'm a
definitely
grown man,
that's definitely
former Army
interesting.
officer. I take myself somewhat seriously, but what are you gonna do?
Um, Going back to the healthy voice thing, and I did say I was going to switch it up, but what are some techniques or things that you do to keep your voice healthy? And this is kind of like going to that self-care type of thing, and you can talk about both, or if they're both, if they're one and the same for you, that's cool as well. But like, what are some things that you do to take care of your
Drink a lot
voice?
of hot tea. I think coffee's okay, and I drink coffee. Drink a lot of coffee, but tea has a soothing effect, more so than coffee does for the most part, on your vocal cords. Just it sort of warms your bosom. It just makes you feel better. It hydrates you. Also, drinking a lot of water
Mm.
is going to be very helpful because especially if you're doing longer stuff like audiobooks, you're losing
Mm.
moisture every time you open your mouth. So you're slowly dehydrating without meaning to. So if you're not constantly replenishing your fluids, you're going to be going to start getting cotton mouth. You'll start making those tacky
Yeah.
noises in the mic that you have to edit out later and that kind of
Mm.
thing. So those are two things: drink hot tea and drink a lot of water. And then also just try to relax when you talk. Don't try to project any more than you have to. Talk loud enough to be heard,
Mm.
and talk with your diaphragm. That usually increases the volume without actually like stressing your vocal cords. And so when
Yeah.
you're a lot of shouting and stuff, that's just rough on your vocal cords. Some people are in lines of work, you have to be able to talk above a machine or something. That was the case with me.
Mm.
But just go easy on it. It's like you don't run everywhere you go, even though you have that capability. So you wouldn't want to
Right.
like
Yeah.
project your voice all the time. It's like, no, it's capable of being very loud, but try not to use that. Try not to redline it.
Mm-hmm.
Try to keep it down here as much as possible.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Good stuff. What would you suggest for somebody, trying to break into voice acting as far as like equipment or how to find gigs and stuff like that? So what type of advice and tips would you give
Yeah, I
to an
would say
individual?
one, start reading aloud your favorite books, magazines, whatever. Read aloud. Be able to tell a story. Make it interesting. Make boring things interesting.
Mm.
Like just practice. And a lot of times if you read something from the classics, sort of a classic literature, or if I read a Maya Angelou poetry book, that's going to be good writing. Fine, read that because
Mm-hmm.
it's not the writing's not going to be crap. It's going to be really good. Use something that is good writing, and then just read aloud, record it, and then listen to yourself and say, "Was that any good?" Or "Ooh, I
Yeah.
don't. I'm not interested at all in what I have to say." And then just do it again. I remember listening to Tom Hiddleston read poetry, and then I recorded myself doing the same poem and listened back to it. And I was like, man, I suck. And then, so, okay, let me try again,
Mm-hmm.
try to sound more like, get that emotion that he had. And I think just comparing yourself, one, reading a lot, like I said, and then comparing yourself to really good
Mm-hmm.
narrators. You don't want to compare yourself to some, noob that's like, you're like, oh, I'm better than him already. Great. Okay, good. How about you shoot for Morgan Freeman? And you'll never be that good, but if you could still be amazing and never have reached his level,
Right.
and yet you could be making a living at it if you're shooting for him. So like
Mm-hmm.
shoot for someone that you really like. And there's lots of great narrators. I have mentioned all, male narrators just because that's where my voice is. But there's so many out there, male, female voices that are incredible. You find what you like, and you sort of connects with you, and listen to them a lot, and then record a lot yourself. Imitate them if you can, and then also, and that's on the practice side. I think it's also good to get in some acting classes, whether it's voice acting, stage acting, getting your local community theater, anything where you're pretending to be somebody else. You're reciting lines for someone else. Do that. It could be improv, whatever it is. I would encourage anyone to be in some kind of performance class, because that will help a lot. And then the actual, I think you need 4 things in your residence to get started, and that is a computer or tablet, software. You can use Audacity, which is free. So that's 2. A microphone, and then a sound-treated place to record. Starting out, that could be as simple as your clothes closet. That's a sound-treated. I mean, if you walk in your clothes closet and say your full name out loud, and then you walk out into the bedroom and say it again, it'll sound different. There's a lot more hard spaces out in your bedroom. It's a bigger space, all that stuff. You could start in your closet. A lot of voice actors have started in there. Don't stay in it. Eventually you want to come out, have a nice place, but you can start there. It's totally fine. And then, that's what you need to start is those 4 things, and a lot of practice, and some training as well.
Gotcha. And like the booking gigs, would you say maybe something like Fiverr, or just getting on LinkedIn?
I think
or sites like that?
My advice is, don't do it on any one thing. Like, don't say, well, I'm going to get on Fiverr and that's how I'll, make a living. No, get on Fiverr, great, but get on a bunch of other ones too and see what works, because there might be one that surprises you. Get a demo made, and this is a little down the road once you're trained up and that kind of thing. But you need to get a demo made, where if you know what you're doing, you can make it yourself. But it needs to be a good professional demo, and then you can email that out to production companies. You can email it to agents and that kind of thing. And so that's kind of your tool to say, here's what I can do, here's what I sound like. And then that same thing you could put on Fiverr. You could put on the ACX, if anyone's interested in audiobooks. ACX.com is a great place to get work for audiobooks. That's kind of where I started. I did a lot of audiobook work early on. That was very helpful in my development, I think, because it was just a lot of, I was telling stories, reading, stuff like that.
Gotcha. And speaking of studios, you are in your studio now. So if you all are listening, you can't see it, but if you're watching the video, Jake is in his studio. Yep. Correct, Jake? Yeah. So, and if you look at the wall, your wall is soundproof.
I don't know if,
am I using the industry terminology?
Sound treated, soundproof, whatever.
Okay. Yeah. He's got the fancy mic from back in the 1950s.
Here's the real 1950s one. See, that's like
there we go.
The one that comes down for the like exactly.
The Elvis. But yeah, it reminds me of the radio shows as well. But like the designer
exactly.
reminds me of like the Elvis movies when I see him on the Cool. So I just got a couple more, I guess, questions for you really quick. I guess I'll go ahead and just get one last question, I guess, about your career. What type of work do you normally do? Is it commercials, just like a lot of like books, or is
it's
it
a big mix of things? But I would say I definitely do a lot of commercials.
Okay.
And then I do some books, and I do a good bit of character type stuff for all kinds of things. Yeah, but
Gotcha.
huge. I mean, a huge mix.
Okay.
Huge mix. Every day it's something different.
Right,
as far
right.
as might be the answering machine for some eye clinic in Texas, and then I'm doing museum pieces for a thing in Qatar for the Sheikh Faisal Museum. It's like you never know what it'll be.
That's crazy. I would never, like, I hear that, the people on the answer machine, or like you call in and you're on hold, but I just never thought about, I guess because, again, the time we grew up, you would just get on the answer machine and
Right.
put your own voice message on there. So I didn't really think,
Well,
they had like, this is somebody in the office.
The companies that do that, you'll know. Like, if you didn't realize it, then that's a good message. But a lot of times, I mean, you know who it is. It's like,
Right.
"Hi, you've reached Ted's Hair Care and Tire Center. We ain't here right now, and call back later." And it's like, oh.
That's what's up. So I'm going to get into a couple of questions with you, this or that, and you just have to pick one of the others. I know you're familiar with it. So this is I try to make these specific to the people if I know them. So the first one is American history or American government.
I don't know that you can separate those two. But I would say American history. I like history.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking the same. I kind of agree with you on that, but in school, I knew I had to take American government and American history. So, but American government is a part of American history. Like, that's how I look at it. AM or FM?
FM.
Alrighty. Movies or series?
It depends. That depends, but probably movies. Probably movies.
Okay. Grilled steak or fried chicken?
It depends on what mood I'm in, but normally steak, just for it's healthy, more healthy.
And Jim Cummings or Mel Blanc?
That's a very tough
one.
I would say Mel Blanc, just because of like watching him do it live, like if you Google him on the Tonight Show, going through the different characters, that's like performance art on its own. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I did some research on that one to see who were considered some of the greatest voice actors. And I saw a video on YouTube about Mel Blanc, and they were saying how he was, because he did, I think, Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny, and the Hunter. But he had Daffy Duck mimicking Bugs Bunny, and Bugs Bunny mimicking Daffy Duck, and the guy from, I think it was Family Guy or some TV show, he was talking about how hard it is to have like two of the characters that you do mimic each other and it not sound like just doing the other character in reverse, but it actually sound like, so. And then I started like listening and thinking about that, and I was like, well, the only thing he was doing was just like speaking for Bugs when he was acting like, Daffy, but he still had the Daffyism when he was speaking as Bugs. So I was like, that's like kind of a mind twist when you like really think about it. But I was like, that was truly
he did
amazing.
Porky Pig, Yosemite Sam, Bugs Bunny.
They were saying he did over 1,000 different voices. I was like, whoa. So I thought that was cool. So I gotta I have a request. So give us your. I'm gonna pick a topic, and I want you to do a voice acting. We're gonna test your chops out here live on the spot. So we're gonna have a advertisement for a men's fragrance, like a high end men's fragrance. How would you do that? Like, we're introducing the world to this fragrance.
Okay, so fragrance companies usually don't have voiceovers. All they have is some kind of stupid, like, like weird, like techno music, and they'll have these otherworldly, landscapey, guy with a bare chest, or you might know him, Johnny
Gotcha.
Depp. You might not know him. He might be a model. Either way, it's some hunky dude, and there's usually ladies like slithering up and down him, and there's no talking. The only time a fragrance talks is at the very end, where you say it's like Yves
The
Saint
name.
Laurent. Like that's all it says. It'll say that, something like that.
Yeah. Now that you said that makes sense, because that's like the only thing that I remember them saying in the commercial is the name of the fragrance. So now I have to pick something else. This is going to be a food place that sells pizza and Texas barbecue.
Okay. Do you have a script, or I'm supposed to make them up as well? Oh man,
Yeah, improv.
I'm not. That's the thing about voice acting. You have to have a script. I can't
have the script.
I don't hold myself responsible for anything if I don't have a script. Now, if I've got a script, it'll sound good. If I don't have a script, it might sound terrible. I did one for a chicken place the other day, though. What was it? It wasn't barbecue as well. Somewhere in the Midwest. I wish I had that script. I don't even remember.
Dang, that game didn't work.
If you had
I have to come with a script next time.
I'd bang it out. It's so fast. Like, I don't know. I'm so terrible at improv. That's something I never took, was improv class. If you do characters, you have to improv. Like, you have to be able to do that. But on a commercial script, you would almost never improv, unless, there's always a script. Then they might say, hey, if you know of a better way to say it, give us some takes like that. But you're kind of looking at it and saying, okay, well, I could, do it like this. But you like, I wouldn't make up a script, let's say. So yeah, sorry, I could have had something prepared, but that's a total like fastball going right by me.
Oh. Trust me. I get it. No problem. One final question. What are some of your likes and dislikes as a voice actor?
I like creative stuff, real, artistic stuff. I like that. I do. There's a piano company called Fazole out of Italy that I do ads for, and they're handmade pianos. They're like $300,000, $500,000. They're expensive, and all of their ads are like short films, and so it's like I'm narrating a short film. I love doing that. They are easy to work with, that kind of thing. When the artist is easy to work with, I love it. What I don't like is working with artists who don't know how to describe what they want. Because a lot of times, artistic people, and I include myself in that to some level, they're not writers, they're artists. So they can't tell you what they want. All they know is when you send it to them, like, oh, no, that's not what I wanted. Well, what do you want? And they can't tell you. That's frustrating. I don't like that.
Right. Yeah. It's like in their head, and they have a hard time getting it out.
They can't communicate to you what it is that they want. So I run into that sometimes. It's always frustrating, but that's just part of the job. You got to deal with it. But I have ways of like, hey, well, who are you talking to? What do you want this person to feel? And then you sort of can kind of milk it out of them.
Gotcha. Huh. What is, and I keep saying that this is the last question, so I'm not going to say it this time, but we're just going to put this one out there so we can manifest it. What is your dream job or your dream voice acting gig?
I mean, someone asked me that the other day, and I told them, I work from home. I make my own schedule. I spend time with my family. Like I am living my my dream voiceover gig. Like I really am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very thankful. But I would also say, any kind of, I don't know, a Super Bowl commercial maybe, or, like a character in a Pixar. I mean, you gotta be an A-list actor to be in a Pixar movie, but I could be the guy at the end of the credits that's, that had like one line, something like that. It doesn't, something fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like I've done a lot of stuff, and I'm thankful. So if I never did that, it wouldn't bother me. I kind of like where I'm at.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. That's what's up. So tell the people where they can reach you at, and what you got planned next for
Okay. Well,
voice
I
acting.
can be reached on Instagram or TikTok at Jake Phillips 116. I have a YouTube channel, Jake Phillips voiceover. I have a podcast, The Cultured Bumpkin, where I read like classics from public domain works, kind of poems, essays, short stories, excerpts, kind of an audiobook form. And you can, get on there, message me, or in my email is jakephillips116@gmail.com. I'm happy to have people email questions. And periodically, I'll have Zoom, like Intro to Voice Acting 101, and it's like a free webinar. So I do those from time to time. So if anybody's interested in something like that, shoot me a message or an email, and I can put you on the list. And when I'm like, hey, I'm about to do one 2 weeks from now, I'll send out a message. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, thanks again, Jake, for being on the show. I know we had some technical difficulties there at the beginning, and but we worked through it. So thanks. And maybe we can have you on here once you get that Super Bowl gig, and you can talk about that.
Maybe I'll have a script for it, and I'll read it out.
Right, yeah, I'll have one. I'll have to have you read something from my book next time.
Real good talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Likewise.
We'll see you. Bye.
All right. Have a good night.